Welcome into Trucker Talk Radio. You're on Behind the Wheelhouse with J and J. I'm John. This is Justin. So today we've got a serious heavyweight in the house. We're talking 30 years plus in technology, CTO roles at some of the biggest names in 3PL, Global Trans, Trinity Logistics, and now MegaCorp Logistics. This is a guy who's been at the intersection of freight and technology longer than most of our listeners have had their CDLs. Russ Felker, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on. Before we thank our sponsors, hey, you know Bob Clare?
I do know Bob Clares. I was just hanging with Bob just a
So
little bit
my
ago.
sister is a Clare.
Really?
My
Oh my
sister,
gosh.
yep, my sister is a Clare. So it's funny because I started at TQL
Okay. All right. Now I see the
and
history.
yeah, so Kevin is his nephew. That's who my
Yep.
sister's married to.
All right.
I'm not sure if you met him. And then Dave, his brother,
Yeah,
worked
I've
at,
talked to Dave.
yep,
Yep.
yep. So
Small world.
yeah, so small world. Don't say anything wrong. I'm going to go to the family.
Bob's
So
awesome. No, we love having Bob here.
we want to give a shout out to our sponsors who make this show possible. First up is Ready App, the platform that is truly becoming the centralized system for drivers, changing how drivers, carriers, insurers, soon to be brokers connect and work together. We're going to be talking about their brand new Driver Verify feature that will also include a load board later in the show. But here's something that carriers need to hear right now. Ready App is offering 3 months of free unlimited job postings. That means more jobs on the board, more opportunities for you, the driver. If you're a driver, go to Ready App in your favorite app store today, complete the driver passport. Takes about 20 minutes, and then you can apply to dozens of jobs in seconds. You fill it out once, and every time you apply or share your info with a carrier, it's done. No more filling out the same paperwork over and over again. So head to ready-app.com. Second sponsor is Gray Cross, 501c3 nonprofit doing incredible work providing emergency financial relief to families who have lost loved ones suddenly on roadway accidents. Every dollar goes fast. We're talking help within 72 hours of the tragedy. Check out graycross.org. Two great sponsors we're generally proud to have a part of the show. All right,
Absolutely.
Russ, let's get into it. Take us back. Where did it all start?
Been in technology for quite a long time and quite a diverse range of industries, from everything from financial services to hair color. Actually, I
Hair
know
color.
that's one that throws most people.
Yeah.
But
Can you help
you know,
can you help our
Can you
hair?
help out our hair?
I well,
Yeah.
they have the beard stuff too. It's fine.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
Okay.
but every industry has some form of logistics, and
Mhm.
as I was always being pulled into conversations about logistics as part of building technology.
Mhm.
So I mentioned hair color. Well, that was working with groups like Wella and L'Oreal, who
Okay.
have to
Oh,
get
okay.
their hair color to salons
Yeah.
and need ways to understand when stock is running low. The salons are kind of there. I mean, they're end consumer, but they're also like mini warehouses of color. And
True.
so they just had no way to understand, oh, hey, we're running low on something. We need to get that reordered. The salon really didn't have a way to understand it, and the manufacturers didn't have a way to understand it. So they had no way to really understand ordering patterns. They knew kind of general demand, but
Right.
not from a regional perspective. So, right there, you're getting into that's logistics. It's figuring out your demand planning, it's figuring out your
Mhm.
inventory distribution patterns, your network. As I kept working with different groups, I just kept pulled in. And I was working in private equity, working with private equity firms, doing things like roll-ups and stuff like that. And I kept getting pulled into these transportation deals. They were looking to buy different transportation companies. Maybe that's software, maybe that's a 3PL, something like that. And I started working
Right.
with Global Trans, has been owned, even now through the worldwide merger and now the Toma Bravo acquisition that's come most recently. And they've always been private equity. So I was working with them for a couple of years. And yeah, Renee, who's now over at Transflow, was like, hey, help us find our new CTO. And then I interviewed a few people and she was like, well, why don't you just be our CTO? So I love that story.
Lucky you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, talked you right
But
into it.
Yeah, walked right into it. And I've loved the environment ever since and the problems that we need to solve.
What are some of those problems? I mean, you started at Global Trans, you went to Trinity, right?
Yeah,
So you've been in the
absolutely.
logistics space for 10 years. So have you seen it evolve from
Well,
your time
yeah.
at Global Trans to what you're dealing with now?
Yeah, so Global Trans, I was there during the uproar of really the digital freight matching. I
Right.
swear
Yeah.
I had to answer a question a week about
Hmm.
what are you doing with digital freight matching? Because this is how it's going to change the whole industry. Of course, it really didn't, but as we all know. But the biggest problems that are still the ones that are out there are relatively straightforward. They're visibility, flexibility, because every company is a little bit different. The stuff they're moving is different. Their demand patterns are different. They're similar problems, but they express themselves differently, customer to customer, company to company. And what I've always been working to inject in is this much more customized approach. It's like, okay, great. We're moving stuff for you. We're helping you to move things from point A to point B. We're helping you to understand your supply chain more effectively, but that's going to be a little different each time. There's
Right.
principles that are the same, but it's a little bit different each
You're
time. And
building things to solve problems, right?
right.
Yeah.
And those problems are not completely homogenous.
Hmm.
There are principles of them that are fairly repetitive, but the actual way it needs to be solved based on somebody's business, and this is true on the shipper side, it's true on the carrier side too, is different from company to company, whether that company is a small shipper, whether that company is a large, Fortune 500, or whether that company is an owner operator or, a Werner or a Knight Swift. Everybody has problems, and they're different.
Absolutely.
How, what they need to solve those. And so that's I think where technology can really play a role in supporting people in solving the problems the way they need to for their business to keep their success going.
All right, so I'm gonna ask you the tough question.
I
One
love
that
tough questions. Bring it.
this is the one that we hear all the time through our shows, through our
Mm,
conversations that we have. And I see it some. I've been in the industry for probably 20 some odd years. Technology has come a long way in that time, of
absolutely.
course.
Yeah.
It seems like more things are being added daily. But
Every day.
when you first got in the logistics and to where we are now, everybody says that this industry is still so far behind
Oh,
what
well,
other industries. What do you think about that? And what has been the best change so far? Because I mean, I know we'll get into AI in a few minutes, but
wait, what's that? No, I'm kidding. I know what AI.
now we're going to have a great conversation now.
Yeah. Hey,
But we
Bob. Hey, Bob, your
Bob, they're
CTO.
asking me about this AI stuff. Behind is a relative term. And if you think about, I think you have to think about it not in a technology sense per se, but if you look at transportation and logistics, it is behind the curve, not necessarily from a pure technology perspective. There's a lot of really interesting and cool technology that is in place in a lot of companies within the logistics space. The biggest thing is the approach to how do we operate this and how do I say all the time, there's two technologies that if you took them out of the mix, the entire global supply chain would come to a crashing halt.
Oh,
That
wow, what is
is
that?
it's two real easy ones. It's phone and email.
Very true.
Yeah.
Think about it. Get rid of
Uh-huh.
those tomorrow. You don't have phone and email anymore. Global logistics is done.
You
It
can't
doesn't
communicate.
exist
Can't
anymore.
communicate. That's
Right.
right.
Right. That's how we communicate. So we've really leaned into that, but it's still a lot of very kind of piecemeal communications and things like that. So I wouldn't say the industry's behind necessarily. I think it's just it hasn't had a forcing function to make it change. If you think about a lot of industries, finance is a great example of an industry that's had this huge forcing function. We've all seen, or, at least parts of Wolf of Wall Street for varying reasons. I'm not judging, but stockbrokers don't exist anymore. Like, that's not a job
Uh-huh.
that actually exists anymore. because of technology that was introduced that allowed, like things like Ameritrade and the little baby that traded stocks. I don't. So
Right.
you had all these things that happened. That's never really happened to logistics. It's still very much just kind of this asynchronous communication pattern that we live with and that we accept as the status quo, and that it works okay for us. I mean, yeah, there have been advancements. There's, TMSs weren't really a thing in the early 2000s, and then 2010 came along. They suddenly a thing, electronic TMSs. But in a lot of ways, those electronic TMSs are just a digital notepad. I mean, think about how you use them. It was still just those asynchronous communication methods. Yes, email definitely had an impact on logistics, as opposed to having to pick up the phone and smile and dial. Texting, SMS, another good one. But most of that has been just giving us another method for that asynchronous communication, not really changing how we approach logistics holistically and thinking about jobs in logistics and how they could be better positioned. Like stockbrokers didn't just they didn't have that job anymore. They all became certified wealth professionals or things like that. They all became this other thing. And, that's the change that I think is upon us now. And I know we're going to be talking about some of the catalysts for that of very recent years. But, we're maybe not brokers anymore. We're logistics professionals.
Yeah, so let's get into that. So where do we think we are right now with AI? I mean, Justin and I just came from Matt's Mid-American Truck Show.
Yep.
And we see a lot of dispatching AI. We see a lot of different AI, like sales AI, outgoing phone calls. AI agents are handling rates, or they say they can handle these rates and negotiation and all this stuff. So where are we now? Where are we going over the next 5 to 10 years? And you guys have a lot of sales reps at MegaCorp. Of
course.
What should they be worried about? I mean, I'm sure AI is going to have an impact on their job in some form or fashion, but are they going to be replaced by humanoid robots?
So the shorter answer is no. If you think about the activities and the tasks that people do today in logistics, there are a lot of manual tasks. There are a lot of companies that they have people picking up the phone and making those check calls. The one thing to remember about AI is while it can do a lot of things, it's also a computer system. So there's one thing we all know that happens, or hopefully everybody remembers, that happens with computer systems.
They break down.
They go down.
That's my question with autonomous trucks. I mean, what happens?
Yeah. What happens when the truck
just stops in the center of the road?
Right? So, and we have to bake that into our approach and our use of these systems. AI it can really help a person to scale themselves by doing some things that are a little bit more rote, a little bit more repetitive, that the people are doing today. So it's not like there aren't things that you really should be turning over to AI. But at the same time, you can't say, well, I've got, we have sitting at MegaCorp about 750 people. It's like I can't say, okay, great, I have 750 people, and now AI does all this stuff, so I only need 400. Well, that's not a good plan, because what happens when it doesn't work? I've only got 400 people. We're dead in the water. And the other thing I can't do is I can't say, well, I got 750 people, I can put AI in, and I don't have to hire anybody anymore. Well, that doesn't work either. Not if you're a company that's trying to grow and trying to get bigger and capture market share and do all the things that most for-profit companies try and do. So can it slow down your hiring? Yeah, to a certain extent, it can slow down the hiring in certain roles and things like that. And will people need to maybe do some other things and some different things than they're doing today? Yeah, absolutely. But don't get rid of those people. That is a bad idea. In so many ways. That is a recipe for your company. Well, actually, all my competitors, you should do that. Oh, absolutely, 100%.
You still need human connection.
That's right. Yeah. But that's the other thing. You mentioned sales. So sales is human connection.
Human connection. Yeah.
I mean, I don't care what, and we're one of the ones that has not moved toward, maybe is a better way to say it, the, carrier negotiation piece being AI. And that's because that's a human connection. It's a person talking to a person. I've never felt like you should disintermediate people entirely, especially when it's a more relationship-based interaction. Yeah, you can get AI agents. I mean, I know I get emails that are obviously from AI agents all day that are baked
more and more
into.
phone calls that we're
Oh
getting
yeah,
from
I get
AI.
phone calls that are AI agents. But even if the AI agent had something that sounded kind of interesting when I got the phone call, I don't really want to I don't really want to have an interaction with the computer in that case. I want to talk to somebody. I want to understand what's going on. I want to have a connection with somebody. We don't bring vendors in that we don't have connections with.
We're at a point where fraud is at an all-time high.
Exactly.
So where does, we start going with these AI agents, we start going with autonomous vehicles. What happens to fraud then?
Well,
I mean, there are hackers that are
and the bad guys are learning AI even faster than we are.
Absolutely. Yep.
And they're using it in more interesting ways. This has always been the case with the bad actors in technology. So if you suddenly turn over something that, AI doesn't have a gut feel when they're on the phone. They don't have intuition. It may seem like AI is intelligent. It is not intelligent by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, it has to be prompted, right? You have to, that's how AI is beneficial. If you know the prompts, AI can be extremely useful. But if you ask AI the wrong question, it's not going to help you in the same way.
I always think back to the iRobot. If you've seen that movie with Will Smith, and he has a little disc that he throws down, and he asks the questions of the professor, and the most common response is, I haven't asked the right question. That's AI today. But I mean, and AI can do things that aren't directly prompted if you give it enough context. But it still does. It has no common sense. It has no intuition, and it has the mimicry of empathy, but it's not real empathy. It doesn't know. It doesn't feel. It can't know how you feel. It can mimic it. Actually, sometimes better than people can. But we've seen that in the news and in articles. But it doesn't really have that. So you have to think about that human connection part of our world, especially in freight. And it's all people doing stuff still. So better have people in the mix, or that's a big problem.
But my thing is with AI technology and all, and you give me your thoughts. So, and you had said this a minute ago, the industry is fragmented. You've got all these companies doing so many different things. It seems like to me what the industry could use in technology is like a central point that everything kind of flow, even with the government side, should flow through. I mean, I would think we would not have as many CDL issues at the moment if there was a centralized base where everybody had access and everybody was, I'm not per se sharing stuff, but you got to go through this to get it over here just to simplify trucking in a way that, because like for me, I'm a big driver guy. I've worked with drivers most of my life. They're so out of touch with the industry. They don't really have a clue what's going on the broker side per se, or in that carrier. They just know what the dashboard says and how much it is.
Right.
And a lot of times I think some carriers and brokers want to be that way because they don't want the drivers to know enough to be able to make certain kind of decisions if that's a good price or not. And it's tough on them because I'll say it, and I say it all the time. Truck drivers a lot of times aren't business people. They're just truck drivers. They don't understand that they actually have a bit, especially the owner operators. They don't understand, they own a rolling business. What do you think about trying to have something that is more centralized, and you still have all your same, entities outside, but it kind of flows in a way to where everything kind of gets connected and brings everybody together a little bit?
Absolutely. That would be ideal. If we look at the ideal state of where it would be, that would be where we are. And a parallel industry that has the same issue till today, even though they've done a lot over the last 25 years to try and alleviate that, is healthcare. You ever try getting a frickin' test that you had over to this other doctor that's not in the network that you just went?
It's not in the network.
It's impossible.
It is.
And it's such a fragmented industry. Now, in luckily for healthcare, people tend to be relatively parochial. Like most people tend to stay in a certain area. They don't go out. But that industry suffers from the same problems. How do I get information back and forth and put together so that I have a clear picture of the patient? In our case, the patient is a supply chain for a company. We talk about the fragmentation of the industry, but think about the fragmentation of the technology in the industry too. Like that you might have McLeod, but McLeod doesn't necessarily care very much if they talk at a fundamental level with SAP or with Blue Yonder or with another, because they're actually competing against those companies.
Right.
So you have this almost inherent competition that is also driving information fragmentation. That's a problem because it makes it very difficult to come to that ideal communication pattern where, at least within a given supply chain, the information is consolidated and available to the right people at the right time. That's the other big piece of technology. Technology in the logistics tends to be a very pull-based technology. So when I say that, it means most technologies are sold and put into place under the impression that you as a person need to go and look for some information to see if there's something you need to do. That's pull. I'm in person, I'm pulling information out of the system. We need to be at a push level. We need to be pushing information to people at the right time when it's relevant to them. Like the thing with DAT, and you mentioned DAT, and then this is not just a DAT thing, it's a load board thing, but load boards are pull. They have some blast emails they send out and things like that. You can, there's some that lets you set some things about preferred lanes if you're a carrier, driver, things like that. And they'll push you out some emails, but it's pushing it out kind of on a schedule. Like when the thing gets entered, now I'm pushing it to you instead of, hey, you're about, you're going to deliver tomorrow over here. Let me push out something that is relevant to you and gives you the loads that are aligned with your pattern, whether that's an out and back pattern, whether that's an ABC, A pattern, whatever that pattern is that driver has. And that's what we need to get to from the carrier community side. We need to be able to effectively push information to them that's relevant. To your point, you've got owner operators they're running a business, but they're having to spend all this time going to different load boards, sifting through all of this information, making calls in to get, negotiated down on a particular lane or something like that. And that's a lot of work for an individual whose primary job to actually drive a truck safely and efficiently and effectively to get something where it needs to go, which we all appreciate because we like our stuff here in America, or worldwide even, but really in America. But to me, that's such a critical missing link within. And it's great that we stand up these systems and we have all these different groups and things like that, but it's still very fragmented. What I haven't seen is somebody just going to a carrier and saying, hey, how do I help you to discover and even get some of that initial negotiation, which is actually, there's no reason carriers can't have AI call in to the AI that's answering the carrier. Just saying. But
we need to have him on some of our board meetings with Ready App.
Yeah, absolutely. Carriers should be front and center.
Drivers. We don't know who is behind the wheel.
Right.
We don't know who is behind the wheel. Let them use something that's functional, right? That helps them. Ease of use, simplified. I always say, like in those meetings, if my dad can't use it, I don't want it. It's got to be automated. We want
you got to meet them where they are. You got to meet them where they are. There's a lot of drivers out there that are not technology savvy necessarily.
Right.
They want to pick up the phone. They want to maybe get a text. But that's about maybe an email, but that's about the limit. So great, meet them there.
Meet them there. Right.
Let them do all of their activities through the methods that they're comfortable with, and then put some automation behind it. So it's maybe it's not somebody saying, hey, here's a load that looks interesting for you, and they got to go, all right, hold on, let me pull up the email, let me get the phone number, let me give them a call. Hopefully I get a person. It's not, some AI agent that's talking to me, and I get some information on the load. I figure out if it's right. 8 out of 10 calls, not the right load. So instead, it's like, hey, here's a load. Great. Let me have an automation, and that can be AI, that goes and gets some information for you about this load, gets a price, at least in a preliminary price, things like that, comes back, gives me a call as the driver and says, hey, found these 3 loads. I got this one, and this one. Here's the price. It looks like they're all picking up within 50 miles of your drop off. Anyone you want to particularly focus on and see if we can get you booked on. I mean, that's the kind of the point of a dispatcher, but not everybody can afford a dispatcher, and not everybody has a dispatcher. I mean, I've known a lot of drivers, their wives are the dispatcher, or their significant other is the dispatcher, to try and alleviate that pain point for them. And there's tools and technologies available that can help that aspect of our supply chain. And they're a big part of our supply chain. So might want to do that. So yeah, I think that's a big blind spot in a lot of conversations we have about technology and supply chain, and where it could provide some really amazing benefits to what is a large percentage of the people in the supply chain.
MegaCorp is one of the largest brokers out there. What are you guys, like top 10, something like?
Top 25.
Top 25.
We'll be top 10. Give us a year.
You'll be top 10 soon.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, you're one of the larger ones out there. And this Supreme Court case is going on, Montgomery versus C.H. Robinson, for those that don't know. And it's all about, the broker's liability, right? What are you guys talking about at MegaCorp? Because you were actually at Global Trans. Wasn't there a case at Global Trans when you were there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Around the same thing, and it actually was in the broker's favor that the broker is not responsible.
That's how it ended up, and now it's back, and it continues. I think it comes back every so often.
Because we do talk about this at Ready App. We talk about driver verification, knowing who's behind the wheel. There's not really a platform built for that. Soon there will be, but there's not really a platform built for that. What are you guys talking about in terms of broker, responsibility here?
I mean, we talk about it, but it's not. It doesn't necessarily change really how we work. We want to know who is behind the wheel. We work to understand them. We work to reuse and have the same people.
Reuse is key.
Behind the wheel. To me, that's the best way to combat this, is find somebody who does a good job and make sure that they're only pulling your stuff. If they do a good job, capture them as quickly as
we've talked about it around here. Like, why doesn't a driver have like a driver baseball card? Driver baseball card with their scores. You give them the driver's batting average, or their it's their credit score on 0 to 100, and the broker has good insight into who they're using. Drivers, it also benefits drivers because if they're a 70 and their buddy's an 80 and he's getting loads over here, and this guy's not, he knows where he needs to improve.
So drivers are people, and there are mistakes that happen. We've all made them. I know I have in my life.
Oh, yeah.
And, one of the things that we have an issue with when it comes to scorecards like that is that sometimes something it happened, not saying something didn't maybe happen, but there's usually it's usually not a simple explanation as to why this event occurred. There are usually many different factors. Scorecards are good in some cases because they help you boil down complexity into something that's relatively simple. It allows you to maybe get a better understanding of what is a large data set boiled down into something small. But when you take that and you say, this is a person, and here's all of the data points about that person, we're going to weight this type of a data point, whether that's a wreck or being on time or what have you, and we're going to rate them on that. Now you're taking a small data set and boiling it into something that was designed as a way to boil down large data sets, population level data sets.
Right.
And that can be very unfair.
The current system right now is like you have FreightGuard reports. I'm sure
Sure.
you're familiar.
Yep. Very
And
familiar.
they get ruined because one driver messes up bad. He or she mess up bad. There's a FreightGuard report that goes on, ruins that carrier, and then that driver goes and hires on with another carrier and is able to run for that same broker.
Because it's carried with the carrier as opposed to with the driver. But again, a driver is a small data set. When you have a more narrow data set, you really got to do your homework on what, okay, I can see all the things that happen. I can see the data. Now I got to understand what's behind the data and what actually occurred. What are the things that happened? And then how is that going to influence, your decision to use a particular driver or not use a particular driver, whether you're, hiring a driver as an asset-based carrier, whether you're selecting a driver as a 3PL. The relationship is where you can move past that particular data set. I think data sets become the reason we chase them. And I think we have been chasing that. It's something we've been chasing. How do we as an industry, not me as a company or any individual company, but how do we as an industry more effectively make sure that our freight can move safely and efficiently and effectively as it moves through any one given supply chain? And there's been a lot of these scorecards that have come up over the years. FreightGuard is one that you've mentioned, and there's been some others that have come up. But the best way is to just know your driver and talk to them and know who they are and have that relationship with those drivers.
When I first started in the industry and I left a large brokerage, one of your competitors, and went out on my own and worked as an agent. And I met a guy in Cincinnati, and I thought he was, a pretty small guy. I never saw him post anything. I found out he was their largest agent, and it's because he built relationships. He didn't need to post. They called him. He did the load. He knew who they were. He developed a list. He developed relationships, and it was an easy call or an easy email.
Text,
and those
whatever.
drivers and carriers benefited. He paid them a higher premium than he would if he's just getting a random call off the load board.
Well, he knew it was gonna be a successful business arrangement between them, and we need a lot more of that.
We tell drivers on this show, we're like, go in and say hello to the shipping clerk.
Yes.
Make yourself known. Like, if you like this load, make yourself stand out. Next time you go, bring donuts. It doesn't cost you much.
No, there's some great things you can do. And to your point, as a driver, as a carrier, to cement those relationships in and work on them. Not that 3PLs are the best all the time at working on carrier relationships. Not here saying we're the best at it from an industry perspective. But we need to get better.
Yeah.
But it's both of us getting better.
It's all
at
sides.
Every
side.
When a load comes up and somebody calls and they pulled the load before, it's like, hey, thanks so much for the load, and it's not just about the rate. It's also about, especially for carriers, about consistency.
Right.
And that relationship can really drive you towards consistency of freight, which means you're not sitting there, you're not deadheading, 150 miles to get to the next load. You're not doing all of these, kind of acrobatics to try and get that next load, because you've got not just good or decent rates, but you've got consistency of freight. And that consistency can be really big. Walmart doesn't charge a huge margin for all of their stuff, but they get a lot of people buying a lot of stuff. They have a lot of shopping consistency.
That's right.
So you could do really well on the consistency train.
That's right.
Absolutely. Well, I want to ask you a little bit about the fraud side of of trucking. We all seen probably by now the shows will be out after that. Of course, the 60 Minutes episode with that carrier, and we've seen
Yeah.
it for the last couple of years. Drivers jump out of their truck, they change MC numbers, DOT numbers, they hop back in, and they keep going. That's a hard thing to fight because you don't have somebody just standing beside them policing them all day long, and the DOT officer, they pull up, they just have what they have in front of them. And
Right.
it's kind of hard unless you search the truck and see that you got four signs in the truck that you really have any question. But, with
Sad
that,
truth.
it is. And then we say it all the time. The crooks, the thieves, they're smart. They're
They
always
are.
thinking ahead. And like you said, the ones that
Hmm.
develop the programs are usually the ones that can figure it out how to manipulate it.
Right.
And one of the things that I've seen in the industry a lot is, like for as a carrier, you have somebody hired on, well, they leave, well, you don't get all your information, you don't get your signage back, you might not get your plates back, and they just
Hmm.
lock it up as a loss. Well, that driver can just keep that side plate,
Right.
call in for a load, and then it's hard to verify really is that guy still with that load. And to me, that's something that should be simple and done pretty easy. As the carrier should still be on top of that, going, hey, these drivers aren't with us anymore. We're trying to do that at Ready App to try to fight fraud any way possible, because it's not one little section of the industry that's fraud. I mean, it's
No.
spread all over. We've got to come up with something to combat. I mean, we've got a friend of ours, Ryan, over at GenLogs, who is, I don't know if you're familiar with
Love
him or not.
Genlogs.
Yeah,
We're users of Genlogs. We
yeah,
love Genlogs. They're great.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
they're helping with it, and can pinpoint trucks that are having the same different signages over a period of time.
Right.
But him alone's not enough.
It's tough because, to your point, they can kind of swap these things out and they can
Mhm.
make themselves appear from a
Mhm.
casual inspection at any rate, which is generally what happens at any loading or unloading. It's a casual inspection. I mean, everybody's
Mhm.
got a lot of jobs to do, not
Right.
just look at the truck and check to make sure, like with a razor blade, does this peel off? Um, so yeah, that you're not going to get that. Making sure that we've got clear identification of who the driver is that is going to be on this load is one of the critical pieces of that. And we do a lot of that here. We make sure we know who the driver is, and we make sure we stay in touch with that driver throughout. But you're working between a lot of different groups that have a lot of different priorities.
Mhm.
And that is always going to be a point where a bad actor can inject themselves in
Right.
a variety of different ways. I mean, we've seen these bad actors stand up multiple websites in a couple of days. And that's one of the things that AI can do for them, and do it now better, to not only be the carrier, but also references for the carrier. And these all
Right.
seem like legitimate sites. And it's like, oh yeah, I pulled for this person, pulled for this person. And then you call them, and it's routed to a different, sounding
Mhm.
voice and all this kind of stuff. But they get more and more and more sophisticated with strategic theft. And that doesn't, eliminate the fact that there's also this kind of hard theft that goes on. The true, traditional, I'll call it, I guess, theft, where somebody's stopping a truck, or and forcing the driver out and taking the cargo. But
Mhm.
the strategic theft is where I think we all are focusing predominantly in
Mhm.
how do we solve this problem. But in the end, and I'll go back to it, and I know I've said it a lot. It's know who's pulling for you.
Right.
That the way
Mhm.
to solve that problem is for you to know who's pulling for you. And that means, in many cases, don't just post the load.
Right.
Get the
Yep.
load in, do your homework, talk to the people that you could potentially pull this load, but have direct conversations with them. Posting the load became a bit of an easy button.
Mhm.
Let's face it, over the last 15 years.
Mhm.
And it is a very easy way. You get the load in, you go, oh, I'll just post that. And a lot of brokers start off that way. They don't really have any relationships with carriers or anything like that. So they post the load so they can get a bunch of calls in and start to develop those relationships. And I'm not saying that that's not a valid way to get started. It can be useful. Well, you got to do a lot more work when you just have a bunch of random people kind of calling in that you don't know.
Yeah. You got a new carrier or a new driver you got to get information for every single time.
Every single time. Oh my gosh, it's so much work. The key is that, again, we've got to get back to relationships between the different people that are enacting the supply chain activities. When you have those relationships, it is so much harder for a bad actor to inject themselves, because they can call up and they can say, well, I'm so-and-so with this carrier. You're like, you are not.
Yeah.
I know Jim, and I know Jim's kid. What? You're not Jim. Get out of here. But if you don't know Jim, you can't say that.
That's right.
You might be like, oh, okay, Jim, got it. All right, awesome. Thanks, man. Great to meet you, Jim.
Well, yeah, and these load boards, I mean, it's pretty much a data dump, right? It's a glorified spreadsheet, and you're getting all these random people and bad actors just attacking. They're just open to attack.
Right. It's a big problem in our industry. It is, I will call it I don't want, maybe not go as far as say a necessary evil. It's a necessary function within our industry. Because invariably, no matter who you are, no matter how big you are, I don't care if you're C.H. Robinson, I don't care if you're MegaCorp, I don't care if you're Bob the broker who just started, you are going to get a load that on a lane you have never even looked at. You're like, oh, there's a road there, and and I get it. That's a thing that happened. So you need some way to tap in to potential capacity that is not something that's just known. But the key is, once you've done it once, twice, once you've done it once, you better be calling that same carrier back again, as long as they didn't do a horrible job. But you better be that should be your first freaking call every single time. It's like, I know you. Want to pull it again? I have it again. You want to do that again? And only in the event that person's like, oh no, man, so sorry, I already have a load, or I'm sick, or whatever. But we have to make it, and it sounds pejorative, and I don't mean it that way, but it has to be a fail condition. Like, I've tried everything else, and now I have to post. Now I got to post to the board. Now I got to put it up there. And I'm doing that not because it's not something that we should have and that we need in our industry. We do. You're doing it because you should know how much more freaking work that is going to be to post that load in the long term. It feels so easy in the short term. You just got to go post and I'm done.
Well, and then you got the worry. You got the worry, like during the whole from pre-booking to booking all the way through delivery, you got a worry, like, is this driver actually going to deliver my load?
Yeah,
exactly.
People talk about a lot how it's logistics and supply chain can be very stressful, but we bring some of it on ourselves.
We do.
Some of our own doing.
Yeah, stress on I mean, God, I remember being on the phone just nonstop, and until I had relationships, I mean, I'd be on the phone trying to find a driver, and I just have left for vacation, and now I got a driver who fell off, and got to get it recovered. And if you have drivers and carriers you can count on, makes your life so much easier on the broker side.
So much simpler,
and vice versa.
And whether you're a broker, whether you're a shipper, doesn't matter. Either way, if you're doing it yourself, you got that all in house, and you're picking the carriers. Maybe you got some assets, some spot. Even these shipper boards, I hate the shipper boards. It's like, just freaking get some relationships here.
Yeah, we need like we need a dating app for
exactly. Exactly. I tell people all the time, we're the eHarmony of trucking. That's what we are.
So before we finish up here, I mean, last big topic is autonomous vehicles. We hear it's 5 years away. We hear it's 20 years away. You've been in the industry a long time. You're a tech guy. Give us your honest read on it. We've got a lot of drivers who listen to the show. They're
Yeah.
nervous about it. They're hating on it big time. Where do you think we are with it realistically? I mean, I just heard of a reefer company today is going to put 500 trucks on the road, completely autonomous.
I think the first moves are going to be just like when AI was first, able to take phone calls and things like that. And if we all remember the story of Klarna, if you remember that, they fired 700 customer service reps.
They did.
Which they immediately hired back.
Yeah, they did.
So, but that's the early days. The longer term is that autonomous vehicles are coming. Waymo has been around now for a number of years. Other autonomous, kind of Uber competitors, I'll call them, that are going to have an impact, just as Uber had an impact on taxi drivers. Groups like Waymo are going to have an impact on Uber drivers. However, those systems are extremely rigid. And they have to be because they are under a microscope all the time of, did this little thing wrong. So they have to be very, very rigid. They can't make a split-second decision. They can make it around the rules of the road, but they can't make it from a logistics perspective. And that ability to do so is something that drivers do every day. They do it almost unconsciously, I would imagine, in many cases. What I think is going to happen, and what will happen, and this has happened across industries, is the drivers are going to be the ones that have to manage the trucks. Somebody still has to watch them.
Planes pretty much fly themselves. We got to have pilots in the cockpit.
But you got to have pilots. And it doesn't mean that one driver, one truck, in the case it is now, but it might mean one driver, 10 trucks. There's kind of 3 stages of AI, AI human interaction. Human in the loop, which is I as a human have to make decisions on a regular basis for these different AI actions to continue forward. Human on the loop, which means I am observing an autonomous process.
You're almost like a traffic controller.
Right. And I'm injecting myself where exceptions are occurring.
Right. You see.
And then there's human out of the loop. And that's not here yet. Don't do that. That's bad. But but human on the loop is something that will come, and autonomous trucks provide the opportunity for drivers to be the human on the loop, to be the one that is looking at this, that is understanding the routes and the needs that are happening when it comes to moving different types of products between different points, and being able to interject themselves when an exception occurs. There's also going to have to be whole industries of on-demand people that go out and pick up the truck when it stops working. So you got a whole industry that's going to be created there. Safe Light, that's great. We got a whole safe truck that's coming. So, and the other thing is there's, you get to a particular location, and I'm sure no driver's ever experienced this, and lo and behold, the information about where you're actually dropping it and what it looks like isn't correct. Oh, shocker. That never happens. An autonomous truck isn't going to be able to deal with that really well. So again, that's that human on the loop. Now, here's an exception. I got to get involved. I need to help this move to where it needs to complete the task that needs to be completed. And I say this to my team, and I say, AI is not going to take your job. There is no AI, whether that's an autonomous truck or whether that's an electronic system. It's not going to take your job, but it is going to start to do things that you thought of as your job. And what that means is that you have to transition what you do as your job. And you have to think about that. And you want to think about that. One of my favorite things, that's why I'm a big movie guy, but there's this, I don't like the movie per se, but it's the new Charlie and the Chocolate Factory with Johnny Depp. I'm a Gene Wilder guy all day long.
I am too.
But
OG.
OG. Yes, absolutely. But at the very beginning of the movie, Charlie's dad loses his job at the toothpaste factory. He screwed the caps onto the toothpaste. At the end of the movie, he is the one brought in because he learned to fix the robot that took his job. We have to, that is the reality. If you look back in history, that is the reality that has come about over
Yeah.
time
We have to
in
be
many,
willing to
many, many
adapt.
places.
Yeah, we have to be willing
And we're
to
really
adapt.
good at that. Humans are
are.
great
Yeah,
adapters.
yeah,
So
Absolutely.
that's right.
I'd say, yes,
I
you
remember my
gotta,
grandmother used
yeah.
saying my mom got a bag phone, one of those. You remember the cell
Yep.
bag phone?
Oh,
And
yeah, I
my
remember him.
grandmother was like
Yeah.
yelling at my mom, like, "Why do you need a cell phone? You have a phone on." And she's like, "Well, what if I go out? You know, if I go out now, I can call." And she's like, "Who do you need to call? Like,
Right.
you only
Okay.
do that when you're home."
And
All right.
now we
Now
don't
look,
even think about it. It's
now
just
listen, y'all
part of
call
us.
it, y'all making me feel old. I had a bag phone at 16. So if your grandmother had a bag phone, now I feel bad old.
No, my mom had a
His
bag
mom,
phone,
his
and my
mom.
grandmother was yelling at my
Okay.
mom.
Well, okay. Well, still, even if you're your mom,
I think you are a few years older than
yeah,
But
me.
that's
that
but
shows
that's the
my
thing.
age there.
Yeah. Autonomous trucks are coming. Autonomous driving's coming. AI is coming. No, they're really just two sides of the same coin.
So, are you doing anything within MegaCorp? I mean, in terms of your infrastructure around autonomous vehicles in mind?
I mean, we are an electronic company. We,
Yep.
3PLs in many ways are data companies.
Mhm.
Asset light 3PLs at any rate,
Right.
which is what we are. So we already were kind of working data. We work data. That's what we do
Okay.
in a lot of
Yeah.
cases. It's relationships and data. So for us, autonomous trucks are there. We talk to them. We don't use them at this point, but we're not against them. But our questions are the same things I brought up here. It's like, okay, who's watching?
Right.
Who is over these autonomous trucks? Who's like, it doesn't have to be 1-to-1, but I don't need somebody riding with every truck. That kind of defeats the purpose. I get it. But how many people do you have that are watching? Like there's 500 trucks. You got
Mhm.
50 people, you got 60 people, you got 100 people. What happens if they break down or if the software stops working? Where's my load? What happens?
Don't you think if we go to that route that we need the same thing that the airlines have, and we have an overwatch of everybody, so everybody knows where every truck is, and if one
Yep.
breaks down, that it alerts everybody that, hey, second right-hand lane on Interstate I-40 at mile markers this. I think they were going to have to do something like that with
I
autonomy,
agree.
just to make everybody else feel safe. Maybe if nothing else, of you going yourself on the road, that, hey, somebody's besides the main person that's watching that truck is
Right.
watching them, kind of per se.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. There's going to have to be a truck traffic control.
Boy, I do not want that job. I can promise you that.
But that's going to be, we have to be on the loop with autonomous vehicles, with AI, with any of these automated systems, especially ones that are, a few tons.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, on the loop is critical, and it's going to have to be. There's a whole new job. I don't think they have a title for it yet, but there's a job that's going to be there.
I'm sure there are a lot of jobs they
needs
don't
to
have
be.
titles for.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, Russ, it's been great having you on. An
Yeah,
incredible
thanks so much.
conversation. Why don't you give a quick plug for MegaCorp?
Yeah, absolutely. Please, reach out to us at MegaCorp. We believe in relationships. That's our firm belief. We work with you and we meet you where you are. That's I mean, if I had to say one thing about what we are, it's if you say I need it this way, that's how we're going to give it to you. We're not looking to change how you operate. We're just looking to make it better and make it easier for you. That's it. It's pretty straightforward. I like to keep it simple. I'm not that complicated of a person. I need something simple.
All right. Well, very good. Well, Justin, you want to close us out?
Yeah. And again, we appreciate you coming on today. Listeners, we appreciate y'all checking us out again. Check us out, subscribe, share the show. We're on Spotify, YouTube, all our socials. Check us out.
iHeartRadio.
Yep. So just keep
everywhere.
Yeah, we're
everywhere.
We're everywhere.
Hey, we're even getting on TikTok finally. So we're
getting TikTok
all right.
famous.
Yeah, we're trying to get out there, but we appreciate everybody's support. We'll check you out on the next episode of Trucker Talk Radio Behind the Wheelhouse.